Welcome back, everybody, to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, coming at you live from the Hollywood Casino by the Speedway ahead of Kansas football's first matchup of the year against Lindenwood, a game that's going to be a tune-up for Kansas football. But I'm out here at the casino giving away great prizes. If you haven't already, go to the Instagram, KC_Sports Report. I'm giving away a $50 Penn Sports Play and a $50 Penn Play Cash. But you have to be following both me and the Hollywood Casino on Instagram. And if you want to have a chance to win some really cool prizes, come into the casino before 4. They are giving away a bunch of signed memorabilia. As you can see, we got a national championship signed basketball, an Isaiah Pacheco signed jersey. We've got a Bobby Witt Jr. signed image. So if you want to have a chance to win some great prizes, come in for that. I'm going to be announcing the winners of that Instagram giveaway probably at about 3:30, 3:45. So I'm going to let people get in here, and then we'll finally chop it up with what's going on in the NFL. We've got a bunch of stuff to cover in this stream. We've got Kansas City Chiefs coverage. We've got Kansas City Royals coverage for the Royals fans and Kansas football fans. Stay tuned because the Jayhawks kick off their season tonight at Children's Mercy Park against Lindenwood. So I want to say right off the bat, go ahead and ask some questions into the chat. I'll try to get to those if I can. But I wanted to use this video and this live stream from the casino as an opportunity to go over the final 53-man roster because the Chiefs have made a ton of roster cuts. I know I made a video, I think a couple days ago, about some of the players that got cut, like Kadarius Toney, Justin Ross, who just got signed back to the practice squad, and Louis Reese-Zammit, who ended up going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the Chiefs made their final 53, and I don't want to say there was too many surprises. I think after the Chiefs brought in Juju, it was pretty evident that they were going to make a tough decision when it came to who was going to be on the wide receiver room. And it seems like Justin Ross and Kadarius Toney were cut candidates, and that's why they ended up not making this team. So with that being said, I wanted to go over and present the Kansas City Chiefs' final 53-man roster. This is all according to the Chiefs website, so we're going to talk about that. I want you guys to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think about the Kansas City Chiefs' final 53? Do you think a guy should have made the team that didn't? And what do you think about the current state of the Chiefs team? So without further ado, we'll go on and get into it. Quarterback, this is no surprise. Patrick Mahomes, Carson Wentz. It was going to be these two. Chris Oladokun really struggled in the preseason, and they cut Ian Book right after that third preseason game. So the two quarterbacks on this team, no surprise, Patrick Mahomes and Carson Wentz. Now, for running back, there might be a bit of a controversy here. The Chiefs took 3 running backs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Pacheco, and Carson Steele. So they're listing Carson Steele as a running back on this depth chart, and Isaiah Pacheco, obvious number one running back. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire making this team might seem like a surprise because he came out and was very open about his struggles with PTSD, and he has not really practiced a lot of training camp and didn't play much in the preseason. So how could a guy that didn't really play very much and hasn't been very good in Kansas City, how is he going to make this roster? Well, I think that it's easy to chalk it up to that he's a locker room presence that guys love to have around, and he's been in this offense for 4 years. He's going into his 5th year option, and the Chiefs do not feel comfortable getting rid of players like that. And so I understand why Clyde made this team. I might not agree with it, but I can definitely get behind what the Chiefs' mindset is that, hey, we'll carry him as a third running back. Deneric Prince doesn't look ready. He'll probably make his way back on the practice squad. And if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is your third running back, I think the Chiefs can get down with that. I think Carson Steele sooner or later is going to have to be this team's number 2. But I think that we're going to get to that point pretty early on in the season. I think that he is going to explode onto the scene, and I don't think we're going to have any questions about his talents and capabilities as it comes to the season. So the wide receiver room is a little bit different. Obviously, a couple big candidates that got cut were Nico Remigio and Kadarius Toney, as well as Justin Ross. Like I said, Ross is back on the practice squad. He signed a contract soonly after getting cut from the final 53. But the wide receiver room looks like this. They have Hollywood Brown, Mecole Hardman, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, Juju Smith-Schuster, who made the team after being signed literally the day before, Justin Watson, and Xavier Worthy. The only big surprise is that Juju's on the team, and that's just because he was a late signing. So I'm not really surprised with anybody that is on this current 53, especially in the wide receiver room. I think it makes sense. Granted, I would like to see what happens on the practice squad if, maybe Ross has an opportunity to, develop even more. But I'm okay with this wide receiver room. Now, I know a lot of people are upset about Sky Moore, and I understand that because Sky Moore has been very disappointing during his time in Kansas City, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But the Chiefs were not comfortable giving up on a guy that's only played 2 seasons in the league. Now, with Kadarius Toney, that's a different story. They traded for him. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. That one makes sense. I'm not going to fault the Chiefs for that. But, a lot of Chiefs fans were upset that Mecole Hardman made the team over a guy like Nico Remigio. And I know that is frustrating to a lot of people, but Hardman was always going to make this team. After the Chiefs brought him back this offseason, he was a guaranteed roster spot. And so, coming into training camp, we knew who at least the starting 4 or 5 was going to be in this offense. It was going to be Hollywood Brown. It was going to be, Mecole Hardman. You had Justin Watson, who's played on this team for the past couple seasons, and he has earned the trust of this coaching staff, and he is going to be here whether you like it or not. I mean, there is just no way that Justin Watson gets out of this offense anytime soon. But I think that the thing that is frustrating is that Sky Moore does make it over a Nico Remigio, because Nico balled out in the preseason, balled out in training camp, and it just didn't work out for him, and the Chiefs had to cut him. So he could be a guy that's back on the practice squad. If he isn't already, I did not see. But I think that a lot of people were very upset that Sky Moore got the preferential treatment that he did. But that's the NFL, guys. That's what happens when an organization will spend a top 100 pick on a guy. I mean, he was a second-round draft pick a couple years ago. The Chiefs were not going to give up on that guy. So Sky Moore making the team makes sense. I think all these wide receivers really fit in. I know everybody wants to talk about Juju Smith-Schuster and if he's going to be a potential, 2 or 3 wide receiver in this offense. I think realistically, with the knee injuries that he's had, Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be a guy that plays sparingly, probably as your number 4 or 5 wide receiver. I'm leaning more towards 5. And he's just going to be your safety blanket. And I think that that's ultimately what pushed Kadarius Toney off this team, is when the Chiefs had the opportunity to go out and sign Juju Smith-Schuster, they got rid of Kadarius Toney because they thought, okay, Juju is a safer option as a number 5 or 6 wide receiver than Kadarius Toney would be. And so from that standpoint, I completely understand it, and I like the signing of Juju Smith-Schuster. But I know a lot of people were complaining that, why does Juju get to make it over a Nico Remigio or a Justin Ross? I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster's done this in the NFL before. He's done it for the Chiefs before a couple of years ago. I mean, he was the Chiefs' leading wide receiver. That's not going to happen in 2024. But if you're wondering why the Chiefs would take a flyer on this guy, I mean, it makes sense. So I don't think that is surprising. The Chiefs ended up taking 7 wide receivers. Now, tight end is interesting. Tight end, the Chiefs took Noah Gray, Peyton Hendershot, Travis Kelce, and Jared Wiley. Irv Smith, the tight end that was brought in the offseason, he ended up not making this final 53, which not really a surprise. He didn't really do anything in training camp and had a very lackluster preseason. So I understand that. And I think taking 4 tight ends is definitely a choice, but I think it means that the Chiefs are going to want to try more 4 tight end packages, get big on the field, get in that 4 tight end set when they're in the red zone, and really just have a much better opportunity of converting in the red zone than in years prior. And so carrying 4 tight ends, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I didn't think that Peyton Hendershot was going to make the team. I thought Jared Wiley, the draft pick from TCU, was a guaranteed lock. Obviously, Travis Kelce's a lock. And Noah Gray has been steadily developing in this offense. So, yeah, that makes sense why Noah Gray and all these guys are on this team. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see, as we go on into the final 53 and positions that they cut in order to take 4 tight ends, Who do they miss out on? Who do they not give a spot on this roster because you carried 4 tight ends and you carried 3 running backs? So really quickly, while we do have some people in the chat, again, I want to encourage everybody to come out to the ESPN Bet grand opening out here at the Hollywood Casino by the Speedway ahead of Kansas football's opening game against Lindenwood, a game that Kansas is favored heavily. I'd come out here and throw some money down on that. I'm going to be announcing the giveaways on my Instagram. I put a poll up a couple days ago about how you guys could win a $50 Penn Sports Play and a $50 Penn Cash. So I will be announcing that about 30 to 45 minutes into the stream, letting some more people get in here. But getting back to the final 53-man roster, I think going into the offensive line, I'll read it off here, but the Chiefs took 10 guys. They took Mike Caliendo, Ethan Driscoll, CJ Hansen, Creed Humphrey, who just signed a massive extension, Wanye Morris, Hunter Norzad, Trey Smith, Kingsley Suamataia, and Jawan Taylor, and to round it out, Joe Tooney. The guy that did not make the offensive line this year was 3rd-round draft pick Lucas Niang. Lucas Niang has made this team the past couple seasons, and I'm not one to call out somebody's love of the game, love of football, but Lucas Niang, back in 2020, when players were given the option to opt out of the NFL season, he opted out. And there is no shame in that. There is no problem with that. But ever since then, he showed up to camp out of shape, not ready to play. And so I really questioned his commitment to the game of football. I don't know how much Lucas Niang was truly invested to be a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think it showed. I think you had a guy by Ethan Driscoll who just beat him out. And quite frankly, good for Driscoll, because he is a guy that I know is going to come in, and he's not going to play a lot. But when he does have to play, somebody gets hurt, I like him a lot more as a swing tackle or guard than Niang. Niang just got outplayed, and it really showed in camp. So I really do like the Chiefs moving on from a guy in Lucas Niang who, let's be honest, he didn't live up to the hype. He was a 3rd-round draft pick in 2020, and he didn't do anything. He gave you no meaningful games, no meaningful snaps. So I'm okay with the Chiefs moving on. But again, we were talking about where the Chiefs going to sacrifice a player and where they're going to fill that position. They cut somebody from the offensive line in Lucas Niang to make room for Ethan Driscoll. So I do like that, though. But getting to the defensive line, the Chiefs took 9 guys. They took Felix Anudike-Uzomah, the 1st-round draft pick out of K-State a couple years ago. Mike Dana, who they gave an extension in the offseason. Malik Herring, Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, Derek Nottie, Mike Pennell. Mike Pennell running it back for like the 4th or 5th straight year somehow. Cameron Thomas and Tershawn Wharton. Now, nothing really jumps out too much. I will say once we get to the linebackers, the Chiefs did just make a trade for an Arizona Cardinals linebacker who I think they're going to use a lot at edge. So that is something to look forward to in terms of pass production. I would love to get your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you guys think of Felix? Because I think Felix is a guy that comes into this season with a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And listen, I'm not trying to sound biased. It's Kansas football all the way for me. I go to the school. I'm not going to lie to you. But at the time of the selection, it seemed like Felix was a pick that the Chiefs made to appease the fan base that the draft was in the city. The draft was in Kansas City. The Chiefs had the final pick in the 1st round. They're celebrating a Super Bowl. It would make sense for Clark Hunt to say, you know what? Let's draft the K-State kid to get fans excited. And it's only been 1 year, and he did have a play in the Super Bowl where he blew up a run, and a lot of Chiefs fans are feeling good about that going into this season. But I think there's a lot of pressure on Felix to produce in 2024. I think that at a certain point, 1st-round edge rushers are going to have to produce. And in George Karlaftis' 1st year, he started off a bit slow, but he was getting playing time. And towards the end of the season, he went on like an 8-game streak where he was recording sacks. And so I think the Chiefs are absolutely going to have to pull some production from Felix this season if they want to have any chance to, at least make it while Charles Omenihu is coming back from injury. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Do you think that Felix has any pressure on him to succeed in 2024? I think that there's a lot. I really do, because Who's your starting edge rusher week 1? Is it Mike Dana and George Karlaftis? I mean, if that's the case, you're going to have to put Felix in at some point. They just don't have the bodies. Unless you're anticipating the linebacker that you traded with Arizona for to play a lot right away, but I think that's unrealistic. So that is it for the defensive line. Nothing really surprising. I think they are anticipating Chris Jones to carry the load once again, which I understand because he's freaking Chris Jones, but at the same time, you can't just put average to below average guys around Chris Jones, expect him to play every single snap. I mean, the Chiefs just paid Chris Jones this offseason, and they gave him a lot of money, and as they should. I mean, he's the best defensive tackle in football. The issue is since you paid him that much money, you have a investment in Chris Jones. And I'm not saying that he will not live up to the investment. I think that that's foolish. I think he absolutely will play a couple more years in Kansas City and be one of the best players in football, as he was this year, voted on by the players. But it would just make his life and his job a lot easier if the Chiefs would just help him out. If the Chiefs could have just, made 1 or 2 moves to bring in somebody other than Mike Dana, I think that I'd feel a lot more comfortable with the defensive line, because it's expecting now that, Malik Herring and George Karlaftis take a giant step. And I'm not saying that they can't, but I think that they are really trusting that their guys are going to improve in-house. And if they don't, the Chiefs might be in some trouble. So hopefully that's not a problem. But, I guess it's more of an issue with the defensive tackle group, like the Mike Pinnells and Tershawn Wharton. I guess Tershawn Wharton's an edge. But the Chiefs have had a lot of guys like Mike Pinnell and Derek Nottie play a lot of years in the system. And I think Derek Nottie started off really good. Last year, his run stuffing ability really suffered. And he's the kind of guy that if he's not stopping the run, he's not really worth having out there, because he's not going to get to the quarterback. His only ability is to stop the run. And if he can't stop the run, I think there is very little point to having him out there. I want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat. I see Peyton, I see Tony, I see Cole. Thank you guys for coming out. Again, we'll be doing more live streams all season long as the viewership comes up. I'm thinking about doing live post games. I'm thinking about doing live streams during the game. So hit this like button, share it so more people can find it. And again, if you guys haven't already, go enter the giveaway on my Instagram that is going right now. I am giving away a $50 Penn Sports Play and a $50 Penn Cash reward. I'm partnering with the Hollywood Casino and the ESPN Bet group to give you guys some free money. And I'll be announcing the winners here in about 20 minutes. You've got to be 21 years or older to enter. So unfortunately, if you're not 21 yet, you're out of luck. But I'll be doing more giveaways in the future that people of any age can win. But if you're 21 plus, go check out the Instagram. It's KC_sports report for your chance to win some free money. Now, getting along with the final 53-man roster, let's get to the linebackers. This is very interesting. Nick Bolton, Leo Chenal, Jack Cochran. Jack Cochran's the guy they really like. Drew Tranquill, who they just gave an extension this offseason, and Cam Jones. And Cam Jones, if I'm not mistaken, was the player the Chiefs traded a 7th-round draft pick to acquire him. And he has been, I guess, sputtering in Arizona is the best way to describe it. But how many times have we seen the Chiefs and Brett Veach pull off a move to trade an asset to go get somebody that hasn't really had a lot of success, but was a former 1st or 2nd round pick? And that's exactly what this move was, to get Cam Jones. And so I think that this is going to be a very low risk signing, or I guess a very low risk trade, but it has the opportunity to be a very high reward. And so that really excites me, because the Chiefs did address a weakness when it came to the defensive line group, and they went out and they got Cam Jones. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, Cam Jones played linebacker in Arizona. He's not going to play linebacker here. He's going to line up as an edge rusher, because that's where he was the most effective when he was playing. And I think in his first year, he had 3 sacks. So if that is something that he could bring to this team, it's only going to make them that much better, and it's a great depth piece. So I have nothing really to complain about the linebackers. I mean, you don't have Willie Gay like you did last year. So Jack Cochran making the team, no surprise. I think that Bolton, he's in a contract year. We're going to have to see him really step up if he wants to get paid. But at the same time, who knows if the Chiefs are going to give that money out. So the Chiefs decided to take 10 defensive backs. and we are going to get into those guys right now. The first guy they took is Chamari Connor, Brian Cook, Jaden Hicks, who absolutely balled out in the preseason, Najee Johnson, Nick Jones, Trent McDuffie, the all-pro cornerback, Justin Reed, Chris Roland Wallace, Jalen Watson, and Joshua Williams. And no real surprise here. I know Echo Boydo didn't make the team, and the Chiefs, according to Steve Spagnuolo, are still really trying to find their cornerback two. There really isn't going to be a cornerback two. And so I think from that perspective, it's really just going to be, who steps up. The Chiefs have had great success in years prior of guys stepping up when they need to. In the playoffs a couple years ago, it was Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson. I always get Jalen Watson and Justin Watson mixed up, but Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams stepped up in the playoffs. And if you guys remember that AFC Championship game against Cincinnati, they made some really big plays down the stretch to help you to win that game. And when the Chiefs won that Super Bowl against Philadelphia, it was a game that featured nearly all rookies. The Chiefs had an incredible amount of young guys in that game, and they balled out, and that's why they were able to win that game. And so I think that the Chiefs are going with younger speed on the defensive side of the ball, which I like. But Spags saying that there isn't a defined number two corner, it is kind of a concern because at least in years prior, there's been somebody that steps up in training camp, whether it's I guess Trent McDuffie a couple years ago, but like a Travarius Ward, if we want to go back into the time machine. They are always guys that step up in training camp and at least have that, job at least a little bit solidified by the start of the season. Going into week one, I have no idea who's going to start outside of Trent McDuffie. I've got no clue. There is no clue in my mind who is going to end up playing. I think it could be a guy like, maybe Chamari Connor. I think that might be a guy that plays. But, Jaden Hicks, a draft pick that the Chiefs just spent earlier this offseason, he looks really good. He looks very promising. And we saw him in the preseason really light it up. And the preseason doesn't mean much. And we saw him absolutely make some crazy plays in that third preseason game. He probably shouldn't have been playing in that third preseason game. But he looked fantastic. And so he could be a guy with the versatility that you want in your defensive back room. And maybe he plays. I would not be surprised at all if, they rotate Jaden Hicks as a corner, or they bring down Chamari Connor, or, maybe it's a guy like, Nick Jones who finally gets a shot. I think the Chiefs will be good enough at rotating guys in. If I was making the decisions, I would have Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams as your number 2, 1 and 2. So I really think that those are the go-to guys for your second cornerback. And if that's the case, I feel pretty good. Like, there's nothing that really scares me about this Chiefs team. And I think if they could really solidify that, number 2 corner, they're going to be okay. Like, I think they're going to be in a really good spot. And like Cole said, Hicks is a hitter. And I think, like, the Chiefs might have gotten Hicks as a replacement to, Justin Reed's getting close to being out of his contract. And that's why you've got Brian Cook and some guys that can really play on the defensive side of the football. They're young, they're fast, they're versatile, and that's so important when it comes to constructing the roster of this team. And so I really like the idea of maybe rotating in a safety. If you play nickel, then you can have more defensive backs on the field to kind of help out some of those cornerbacks that might be playing, one-on-one. But I really like the idea of putting Trent McDuffie on an opposing team's number 1 wide receiver and just saying, you know what, Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams, you go out and cover their next guy because we feel okay. We feel good about you getting the job done and at least, not embarrassing this team. And so I like the Chiefs' options. But getting into the final glimpse of the final 53-man roster, we are going to talk about special teams, everybody's favorite. The specialists that the Chiefs took were Matt Ariza, the punter, Harrison Butker, the kicker, and James Winchester, the long snapper. Now, not that anyone really cares, but I think the Chiefs could be in a position to have maybe the best special teams unit in football. And I know that's something that not a lot of people brag about or, care about, but Matt Araiza, coming out of college, got drafted by the Buffalo Bills. He had a lot of off-the-field stuff going on, and he ended up getting released from Buffalo and had to let the legal process carry out. But coming out of college, he got drafted. Punters don't get drafted. That is a very rare phenomenon. And his nickname was the punt god. His nickname was literally the punt god, and he can punt a ball 70 yards. And so he is going to be very useful when it comes to pinning opposing offenses down at the goal line. And with the new kickoff rule, you're going to want to put guys as far back as you possibly can. And Harrison Butker, I mean, what is there to say? I mean, he is by far and away one of the best kickers in football. I would argue he's the best kicker in football. I think if you've got a 50-plus yard field goal, he's nailing that, and he's nailing that every time. And so, with Matt Araiza and Harrison Butker, and I don't want to give any shit to James Winchester, but I'm not really counting him as much of a difference maker. But I think the Chiefs have some great specialists, and after losing Tommy Townsend in free agency to the Houston Texans, picking up a guy in Matt Araiza who I think is an upgrade, and I really like that. So that was the Chiefs' final 53-man roster. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of the final 53. I know that a lot of people thought, Kadarius Toney might sneak his way on the team, or Justin Ross would, or maybe a Nico Remigio, but those guys all ended up getting cut. I know that Justin Ross just signed a deal to be back on the practice squad, and the Chiefs actually did get rid of LRZ, Luis Reese-Zammit. He ended up going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and so they did lose out on him. But I think that for kickoff returns, that's going to be a very interesting topic because it's new to everybody. Some teams did better than others. Nico Remigio was actually very good on special teams and had some pretty good returns in the preseason. You would have liked to have that coming up, but I think the Chiefs are going to have to make sure to be on top of special teams, because if they're not, it could be an issue. I don't want to say that special teams has been a kryptonite of the Chiefs in the past, but Dave Toub has been hit or miss. He's had moments of brilliance. He's had moments where he is absolutely amazing, and he's had moments where he was not so good, and he was not so good at putting guys in the right position to be successful. So I think Dave Toub with the new kickoff rules and a lot of a lot of pressure to succeed right away, because if a team is able to get a successful return off, it could put them at the 50 or the 6, or it could put them at the 50 or the 60, and that is really going to be a problem. I guess the 50 or the 40. But again, I'm live at the Hollywood Casino for the ESPN Bet Kickoff. Go check out the post on Instagram. I'm giving away a $50 Penn Sports Play and a $50 Penn Cash reward system with the Hollywood Casino. If you want to win that, go do that on the Instagram, and you can have a chance to win when we do give it away in about 15 to 20 minutes. So we're going to get into the Kansas City Royals. Now, this is something that we have not talked about in a while, because the Royals have been up and down, mostly down for the last 5 years, but right now they're up. And the Royals went to Cleveland and, against all odds, won 3 out of 4. Now, we're not going to talk about yesterday's game. Yesterday's game was bad, but the Royals were able to go to Cleveland, take 3 of 4. At one point on Wednesday night, the Royals were tied for first in the AL Central. This is something that has not happened since 2015. And as Royals fans, we have seen the gauntlet of players play for this team. We were reminiscing a couple hours ago off stream about players that play for this team from like 2017 to like 2022. And there was like Lucas Duda was in the mix, and just a bunch of random players that should not have been on this team. But the Royals are back. Like, the Royals have a legitimate shot to go to the playoffs and a legitimate shot to contend in the playoffs, because I know everybody's talking about the Yankees and the Astros, who the Royals actually kick off a 4-game series against the Astros tonight. But you want to talk about the pitching a little bit? We got the pitching. Michael Wacha. You want to talk about Seth Lugo and Cole Reagans? The Royals, I think, are actually top 5 in the baseball when it comes to team ERA. Oh, yeah. The Royals have the pieces to go far in October if they are able to, get there. That's obviously the hard part, because I know everybody was talking about, oh, the Royals are so close to winning the Central. There's still like 27 games left. They've got to play the Yankees. They've got to play Houston. At this point, just make the dance. Just get the wild card. And if you could get a game at home, that'd be great. I know that there would be 36,000 out there at Kauffman to celebrate that. And Kansas City shows up when it comes to postseason baseball. And so I think that there's a good chance that the Royals make the playoffs. According to like every big metric, they're in the 80 to 90th percentile when it comes to chances of making the playoffs. So at this point, I'm hoping the Royals don't royal. And by that, I mean just lose 20 of your last 28 games and just kiss that chance goodbye. But I saw something that the Royals, I think, are up 5.5 games in the wild card. It might be more. It could be 4.5. I can check that actually. But are they up 4 games? Is it? Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, they've got a lead. They've got a 4.5 game lead, I believe, on the Boston Red Sox. And I saw it. If the Red Sox wanted to make the playoffs, they would have to run the table, and the Royals would have to go like 17-21 in order to miss out on the playoffs. So I really like the Royals' opportunity and chance of making the postseason if they can just finish strong. I know a lot of people are starting to get concerned about how the arms are going to hold up, how the bullpen's going to hold up. I think that is a very fair concern, a very fair critique, because the Royals last year were not anywhere close in this position. The Royals last year were the worst team in baseball, and everyone's talking about it. Like Bob Nightingale, who covers Major League Baseball on Twitter, he's just talking about how there's never been a team to lose that many games, lose 100 games, and then in just one season, one off season, turn around and win their division. And the Royals are 30-something games away from being the first team in Major League Baseball history to pull off that feat. And that is incredible. Like, listen, the Royals, I think expectations coming into this year were just to be a formidable team. But when you got guys like Bobby Witt Jr., who's having a legitimate MVP campaign, Salvador Perez, who is still doing what Salvi does, and he's like in his 30s, and Vinny Pasquantino is towards the top of the league in RBIs. So the Royals have 3 or 4 guys that are carrying this offense. And when you pair that with one of the best pitching staffs in all of Major League Baseball, it is a recipe for success. And if you can have that going into the postseason, I mean, the Royals have an opportunity of throwing out Cole Reagans, Seth Lugo, and I guess if it's in a 3-game set, you could have Brady Singer go in game 3. I know he's been a little bit shaky as of late. You could have Michael Wacha. You could have Michael Lorenzen, who they just traded for. And, the bullpen has gotten better with the addition of Lucas Erdeg. And I know a lot of people are still, very much so on the fence of this bullpen. And I don't feel great about this bullpen. But the Royals did about all they could do at the trade deadline to trade for players that could make an impact in this bullpen without giving up, a crazy amount. Because the one thing that is always in demand at all Major League Baseball trade deadlines is relief pitching. Everybody needs a reliever. The Phillies traded for relievers. The Yankees did. That is something that every team wants. And so the asking price for a quality reliever is through the roof. And for the Royals, who, let's be honest, should not be in this position, it didn't make sense to hemorrhage the future on signing a guy or trading for a guy who's going to be here for 1.5 or 2 years, and then he's gone. I think the Royals would feel much more comfortable taking this offseason, regrouping, and bringing in like 2 or 3 arms for the pen, go out, get a nice, outfield bat or somebody that you can put in the middle of this lineup that will actually produce. And then I feel really good. Like the Royals are drastically overproducing in 2024. Nobody expected them to be here. But the thing is that they're here right now and have a legitimate shot to, if they make the dance, if they get into October, they have a chance to do something special. And it's just because whoever makes the Major League Baseball postseason, it's all about who's hot. The Royals, when they made it in 2014, they were not better than any team, but they were hot. And they also played team baseball, and they were the hottest team in Major League Baseball history. They didn't lose until game 1 of the World Series. So all it takes is, your starting pitchers doing their job. And, you could have Bobby Witt Jr. legitimately win you a game or two early on in the playoffs. And that could be a recipe for some baseball magic in October. So the Royals are really exciting to me because I think that we're all going into it like, okay, the Royals have already superseded my expectations. I feel like, as a Royals fan, as long as they finish strong, make the playoffs, they could lose in the first series. And I would be like, you know what? That was a great season to go from being the worst team in Major League Baseball one year to either winning your division or turning around and making the wild card game is something that, this organization can take a lot of pride in going into the offseason, and they can say, hey, you know what? Let's go invest. Because it's so funny that when John Sherman and his front office finally start to spend money, the first season where they went out and they signed Seth Lugo and they signed Michael Wacha, the very first season after the Royals had maybe one of the worst seasons in franchise history last year, the first season after spending money in the offseason, they are, 20 games above 500, and they are vying for a playoff spot. They're like fourth in the American League for overall record. The Royals are in a position that they can be in consistently as long as ownership spends money. And so I think that this year was a great sign for John Sherman to pony up in the offseason and spend money on bullpen arms and maybe a right fielder or somebody that you can put in the middle of the lineup that could be a consistent bat for this offense. But I feel incredible about this team and the state of where they're at right now. Obviously, they go to Houston to play the Astros. They came to Kansas City early on in the year. They hadn't figured anything out by that point, but the Royals kind of slapped them around a little bit. I'm not expecting that because the Astros, once it comes time to actually play meaningful baseball, they seem to get their act together and figure it out. And the Astros, I think, have played in the last 6 ALCSs. And so they're going to be there in October, whether we like it or not. They're going to be a team that you're going to have to go through in the regular season and in the playoffs if you want to have any success. And so the Royals are really going to have to focus on playing it game by game, which obviously is cliche, but I think that the Royals have a really good opportunity to make the playoffs. And, at that point, who knows? Like, I don't even know what to say because whenever the Royals do make the playoffs, it's not much, but when they do, they often do something surprising in the playoffs. So I think that is something to be on the lookout for. But I would love to get your guys' thoughts on what you think the Royals are capable of doing in 2024 in the playoffs, because really, who's to say that this team can't get hot at the right time and win a series or two? Or maybe they, go on like a 2014 type run where they just steamroll everybody that they face, with Seth Lugo and Cole Reagans leading the charge and Bobby Witt Jr. hitting 2 or 3 hits a game and hitting 800 in a 4-game series. Like, he is capable of doing that. And so with that being said, I'm going to get into some questions. Brian Trejo asks, can this Royals team win a World Series in the next few years? I think to answer the question if they can win the World Series in the next few years, this current Royals team could not. I think the Royals are pieces away. That they need to solidify the bullpen. The lineup is just not good enough. They've superseded my expectations, but you cannot trot a lineup of, just Vinny, Bobby, and Salvi. That's not going to be good enough to win consistently in October. I think it could be, a recipe for having a really good few game stretches, but you're going to need somebody that can hit at the end of the lineup. And I think that when this team is finally around to competing for a World Series, they're going to have to be pretty rock solid at most positions. And what I mean by that, you can't have MJ Melendez hitting 214, or you can't have Michael Garcia struggle the way that he has struggled in 2024, and you want to win a World Series. So I think there's some positional upgrades they need to make in order to contend, but I really do feel good about their opportunity to, add some relievers and add a few arms and some bats in the offseason. I think they need at least 2 bats, and I would go with 3 bullpen arms. I know that they're, still solid on a lot of guys in that pen, but I think we've seen enough from this squad in, 2024 to say like James MacArthur, you might be done. Will Smith, thanks for your contributions, but we don't want you back. And so I think that would be the best case scenario for the Royals, if they want to compete in 2025. I still don't think that even 2025 is the year that this Royals team competes for a World Series. I think it might be, a couple. I think that if we are trying to draw similarities and comparisons of, Royals teams of the past, I think that this Royals team is a lot like the 2013 team that just missed out on the playoffs. Like, this team is incredibly young. They've got a bunch of holes, but they've just overperformed, and they've had a incredible season, but I don't think that they're ready yet. I think a team like Baltimore that just has way more talent, or New York, even if you guys remember when the Yankees came to Kauffman, it was not a pretty sight. I mean, they were just, I think they had, Aaron Judge and Juan Soto weren't playing, and they kind of had their way with us. And so the Royals aren't at that point yet, but if we're just talking about, can they compete in the future? Absolutely they can. And I don't think that they're as far off as we initially thought they were as we entered this season. So with that being said, I'm going to get into the winners of this giveaway. If you guys haven't already, I'll give you one last chance to answer. Go to KC_sports report on Instagram and enter the giveaway. ESPN Bet, the Hollywood Casino, and I are partnering up to give away a $50 Penn Sports Play and a $50 Penn Cash reward. Again, you have to be 21 years or older to enter, but I'm going to give away those prizes in about 5 minutes. Again, the Hollywood Casino is offering a bunch of great prizes. There's a Bobby Witt Jr. signed photo. There's an Isaiah Pacheco signed jersey. Come in before 4 o'clock for your opportunity to win one of those items. They're giving away a bunch of stuff, but this is also going to be the place, all season long, hopefully, knock on wood, that they will be a partner of this show, and we'll get a lot more stuff coming forward. But why don't we get into a little bit about Kansas football? I'm not going to take up too much of the time to talk about Kansas football, because this game against Lindenwood is not going to be something that is very entertaining. I mean, I guess it will be entertaining from a standpoint of Kansas is probably going to win by 49. I mean, a couple years ago, they beat the brakes off of Missouri State, and Kansas, for the most part, in the Lance Leipold era, have their way with the team the FCS team that they invite in to come play. Lindenwood had, I think, 2 or 3 wins last year. They're not going to be a very good squad, and I think that KU more than likely wins by 35 plus. And so I feel really good about the opportunity for Kansas to kind of use this as a tune-up game and something that, will help them really become a team that can compete for the college football playoffs this year. I know that there's probably some Mizzou fans in the chat. There's some K-State fans in the chat. Unbiased. I'm going to be unbiased here. K-State is going to have the best chance to win this conference. They're going to have a good shot at making the college football playoffs if they do win the conference. Mizzou's going to have it tough. Missouri's in the SEC, and they play Oklahoma and Bama in 2024, but they've got a pretty good squad, so they're going to be fighting for a college football playoff spot. All I'm going to say is Kansas football, if they can find a way to beat up on their lower strength of schedule. They're not playing the gauntlet this year. If they can beat, the Iowa States and the lesser teams on the list like West Virginia, if they can win those games and get to a point where the Sunflower Showdown, which is going to be played in Manhattan, it should be played at Arrowhead. I'm just going to say that right now. If they could get to a point where Kansas football is going into that Sunflower Showdown undefeated, the winner of that game could more than likely advance to the Big 12 championship. And at that point, the winner of the Big 12 championship goes to the college football playoffs. I think that there's a good chance that, even the loser of the Big 12 championship, as long as they are like 11-1 or maybe 10-2, they might have an outside chance of getting in. But realistically, for Kansas football, they're going to have to win 11 games, more than likely go undefeated if they want to make the college football playoffs. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to do it. I'm not going to say it's impossible either, because I think that this unit is going to be much better with Jalen Daniels back at quarterback this year. And so I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I really am. And so let me know down in the comments what you guys think that your school is going to do. I could definitely see Missouri making it to the college football playoffs. They do have a really tough schedule. And K-State, I mean, their schedule is not easy. I think in comparison, Kansas actually lucked out and got pretty good strength of schedule for a team that is trying to win the most games that they can. Now, last year we kind of saw the resurgence of Kansas football. They made a bowl game. They won a bowl game against UNLV. And I think that kind of set the tone. But right now, the tone is not, let's just win 9 games and win a bowl game. I think that this team has their eyes set on beating Kansas State, going to the college football playoffs, and maybe making some noise. Now, listen, that is a wild thing to say. As a Kansas football fan, the fact that I am talking about the college football playoffs in one hand and Kansas football potentially coming together, I cannot wrap my brain around that, especially because Kansas football has been so bad for so long. But we've seen a resurgence with Lance Leipold at the helm. Like, they have made some crazy, and I mean just crazy strides to being a team that is not a joke anymore. I mean, we've seen them, pull off upsets against Oklahoma and, a couple of years ago, Texas. This is a team that is going to be returning a lot of the same players and the same guy at quarterback. And if he can stay healthy, if Jalen Daniels can stay healthy in 2024, I'm going to be honest, guys, I think the Jayhawks are going to be a pretty good football team in college football. So with that being said, while there are as many people in the chat as there are, I'm going to go ahead and get into the winners of the giveaway. I am going to pick from the Instagram comment section of all of the winners. We are going to go with, and actually, I see him in the chat. We'll go with Tony Fuentes, 407. We'll go with proud_ICT_native 316. He just commented. He just got it in. And we will go with, for a little bit of diversity, we will go with Jackson D. Murray. So again, the winners will be Tony Fuentes, 407. We will go with proud_ICT_native_316. And I will actually be reaching out to you guys directly. If you did end up winning, I'll DM you guys on Instagram. I will say they gave me this to read off. So you want to know, how do I claim my prize? So the winner of the, free money, the $50 in Penn Play Cash and the $50 in the Penn Play card, you have to set up a Penn Play account first. So go ahead and get that done. I will end up sending a link to you guys if you cannot find it. But you have to create an account, and then you have to come here to the Hollywood Casino and head into any promotional kiosk to claim the prize by tomorrow, 9/30/24. And you can swipe your card at any promotional kiosk on the casino floor and hit the promotions tab. You will see an ESPN Bet social winner, and then you got to hit the $50 Penn Cash, and it will automatically load onto your card. The $50 Penn Sports Bet will print out, and you'll be able to use it at the ESPN Bet Sportsbook counter. So I will end up emailing you, direct messaging you guys all of that information so you can claim your prizes. But again, I'm here until 4 o'clock, 4:15. Come on in. Go check out the grand opening of the sportsbook. Goodness gracious, I'm blanking. Come check out some of the prizes that they're giving away. Like, they're giving out a Bobby Witt Jr. signed. They're giving out a Bobby Witt Jr. signed a picture. They're giving out a Isaiah Pacheco signed jersey, as long with a Kansas basketball that's also signed. I will say that, Tony, it is the Hollywood Casino at the Kansas Speedway, so it's in the Legends for the confusion. That way I can clarify that. But I will be direct messaging you so you guys can see all the details of how you will be able to claim your prize. But that are the winners. So again, Tony Fuentes, ICT native, and let me get the final one so I can just confirm. And Jackson D. Murray. Those are the winners of the giveaway. I appreciate you guys for entering. We'll be doing a lot more giveaways all season long. I want to give away some Royals tickets here soon. I want to give away some Chiefs tickets if I can as well. So definitely stay tuned to the channel, and you will have an opportunity to win more giveaways as we get into that during the season. But I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think of the current state of either the Chiefs, Royals, or the Jayhawks, because I was just seeing about this the other day. We are truly blessed to be a Kansas or a Kansas City sports fan right now. Even if you're a Missouri sports fan, let's think about this logically. The Chiefs coming off back-to-back Super Bowls. The Royals are fighting for a playoff spot after they haven't made it since 2015. Kansas football is on the rise. Like they have a legitimate shot to make a pretty good bowl game and maybe surprise some people. Kansas State and Mizzou are fighting for the college football playoff, an opportunity to play in the college football playoff, which would not have been possible until the committee expanded the playoffs. So, like, all of these things are going on. Everybody is just so fortunate to be a Kansas or a Missouri sports fan right now. Everything is going well. I mean, football-wise, you've got all of the football teams in the area competing for, pretty high stakes. 2 of them for the college football playoffs. 1 of them's for a very high bowl game. The Chiefs are trying to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls, and the Royals are trying to make the playoffs, and they've got a really good chance of doing that. So we really are spoiled here to be in this position, because it was only a couple of years ago where the Royals were really, really bad, and if we want to go a little bit farther back before Mahomes, where the Chiefs were just mediocre throughout, the first couple seasons of Alex Smith. And so we are really lucky to be living in this time where we have a football team, a professional football team that is trying to win their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. We are very lucky. Cole, I just saw that ICT_native is me. Congratulations to you. Again, I will be direct messaging you guys with all the information. I'm also going to be giving your names, giving your handles to the wonderful people at the Hollywood Casino at the Speedway. But again, you're going to have to get in here by tomorrow to redeem your $100. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit more about the Kansas City Chiefs. Brett Veach actually spoke to the media today for the first time after the final 53-man cutdowns. And, Brett Veach is a guy that I think is fantastic to listen to in press conferences. I think he is amazing. But unfortunately, he is not made media available very often. He talks like once after the draft, and he talks, maybe before the draft, leading up into it, and then he'll talk after, the cutdowns, but he just does not speak enough. But I feel like all of the questions we have about roster construction and whatnot, he doesn't have to answer to those, but he did meet with the media today. And the thing that I wanted to talk about, he described why the Chiefs cut Kadarius Toney. And I think that realistically, it's very easy to understand. Kadarius Toney, for as much of the off the field stuff, that we have to deal with all the social media antics and the cursing people out, this was a tough decision for them to let go of Kadarius Toney. They did not want to do that. I think they really liked everything that he could have done for them on paper, but the issue is that it just did not work out. And I think that injuries played a massive role in that. But at the same time, I think that he still has a lot of learning to do when it comes to, the preparation it takes to be ready, whether it's body or mind. Like, he showed up to camp and he was out of shape. And that is not what you can have if you're trying to make the team. Like, he was not a guarantee to make this roster. He was coming into training camp as a guy that was going to have to really fight to make the team. His job, it was an uphill battle. And realistically, he probably should have been cut midway through last season, but he wasn't. And he had an opportunity to stay on this team, collect another ring, and he had a chance to make the team in 2024. But again, it was going to be an uphill battle. But for him to show up out of shape, for him to show up and not be ready to perform in the preseason and in training camp, you're just not going to make the team. And so Brett Veach spoke highly of him. Like, I don't think he has a problem with the guy that Kadarius Toney is, even though I had a chance to talk to him last year at Super Bowl Media Week. He's an odd guy. Kadarius Toney's not what I would call normal. He's kind of a weird dude, but he's a nice guy. Apparently, Brett Veach said he's a very smart guy, but he's just not available to play. And in the NFL, the best ability is availability. And Kadarius Toney was never available. So if he's never available to play on the field, when you just signed Juju Smith-Schuster, when you've got guys that came in this offseason like Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, it made sense why Toney did not make the team. They just could not, justify that roster spot because he didn't really do anything positive for this team last year. In fact, if we look at the Kadarius Toney experience in 2023, he was all negative. Like, he was costing this team multiple games, and it was because he could not hold on to the football. Couldn't hold on to the football. And so I think that is a very it's sad. Quite frankly, it's sad because Kadarius Toney is a guy that had, I want to say, all the talent in the world. His ability to make a guy miss is something that very few players in the National Football League can do. He was an electrifying player. And in fact, in Super Bowl 57, when the Chiefs needed a spark, when the Chiefs needed a burst, he had that kick or that punt return, and he brought him down to like the 5-yard line, and he caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So I don't want to say that the Kadarius Toney experience in Kansas City was overall a negative, because he was a big part of your Super Bowl team. Without Kadarius Toney, you probably don't win that game against the Eagles. And so for that reason, Kadarius Toney was great. And I'm not going to complain, because you traded a 4th-round draft pick to take a flyer on a guy that you thought might have something left in the tank after pretty much bottoming out in New York. And I think that there's a good chance that he lands somewhere else. Now, I don't know where that's going to be, because as of right now, he is sitting on his couch. He's a free agent. No other NFL team has picked him up, and it might be a while before another NFL team picks him up. But I think he will probably get a shot somewhere else. But the question that I will ask to you guys in the chat is, if he doesn't work out in Kansas City, of all places, with Andy Reid, who is a top 2 mind in football history when it comes to offensive game planning, if he cannot work out in this offensive system with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the football, what makes you think he's going to work out anywhere else? I think that is a very fair criticism, a very fair critique, and it's why Kadarius Toney isn't on this roster. He just did not fit what the Chiefs are trying to do in 2024. They need guys that can give them a solid 200 to 300 yards a season, and that is a major if Kadarius Toney could do that. And he was not going to be able to do that because he was never going to be on the field. So I'm glad the Chiefs cut ties with Kadarius Toney, just freeing up that roster spot for Juju Smith-Schuster. And I know a lot of people might make the argument that instead of Juju Smith-Schuster, it should have been a guy like Nico Remigio, or it should have been Justin Ross. Juju Smith-Schuster was brought in because he was a better option than anybody else the Chiefs had that was on the bubble of making the wide receiver room. It just made sense. It made so much sense for the Chiefs to move off of guys that they were kind of like, they might make the team, they might not make the team. They moved off of that. They went out and they signed a guy that they feel very comfortable with producing in 2024. And listen, I'm not expecting Juju Smith-Schuster to have some crazy, 2024 campaign where he just lights it up and he's a legit weapon in this offense. But I just do not think that he is going to be the problem that Kadarius Toney was, or he's just going to be a negative like Sky Moore. I think that Juju Smith-Schuster, if he gets to, play a couple snaps here or there, he can give you a couple 100 yards and maybe a couple touchdowns. And as your wide receiver 5 or 6, I'm okay with that. The thing that the Chiefs have had an issue with in the past couple seasons is they will put guys, offensively speaking, they would put wide receivers in a position to fail. Marquez Valdes-Scantling last year was on paper this team's number 2 wide receiver, maybe even number 1 wide receiver, depending on who you asked. Because the Chiefs went into last offseason thinking that Kadarius Toney was wide receiver 1 and Marquez Valdes-Scantling was wide receiver 2. They are both not on this team in 2024, and MVS is still having the drop problems in Buffalo. So I think that the Chiefs put a expectation on a couple players last year that wasn't fair to them. They're not number 1 or number 2 wide receivers. But this year, they're expecting Rashee Rice to take a giant step. Rashee Rice might be the Chiefs, leading receiver in 2024. There is a good chance that ends up being the case. I don't think that he gets suspended in 2024. We might be looking at a 2025 suspension for Rice. And I think that is a great thing for the Chiefs because you're going to have him on the field when Hollywood Brown is hurt and he can't play. So I really like that. But I think the Chiefs are going to have, a much better expectation of what some of the players that are lower down on the depth chart are going to produce. I think it is a fair assessment to say that Juju Smith-Schuster will probably have a couple hundred yards, a couple touchdowns, and he will help this team hopefully win another Super Bowl. He is a perfect 5 wide receiver to have. I think he's a guy that also knows his role. He's not going to come in, week 1 and say, where's the ball? Why am I not getting my catches? That's not Juju. He's never been that guy. And, he just knows that this is his opportunity to, be in the passenger seat instead of the driver's seat and just kind of go along for the drive. And I think that's a great thing. And so I really like Juju Smith-Schuster as a wide receiver 4 or 5. Now let's get to this comment by Cole. It says, according to Chat Sports, we're actually exploring the idea of a Cooper Kupp trade. Your take? I don't think that's going to happen. I think Chat Sports has a lot of interesting takes to bring people in, and Cooper Kupp to the Kansas City Chiefs is a headline that people would probably click on. So that makes sense. But let me explore it really quickly because I don't think that he is even a free agent for a while. He just signed a extension, I think a couple years ago after they won the Super Bowl, if I'm correct. So in order to get him, they would have to pay him a lot of money. Yeah, he signed a 3-year, $80 million contract with the Rams, including $20 million in signing bonus and $75 million in guaranteed money. I got to see when this was signed, but yeah, okay, so he signed this in, oh my gosh, I just saw his cap hit. He signed this in, was it 22? I think it was 22. I'm looking at Spot Track right now. Apparently his 2024 cap hit is nearly $30 million. It is $29,780,000 is his cap hit in 2024. And the 2024 cash, apparently he's getting $20 million. Maybe that signing bonus is kicking in now. I do not like the idea of trading for Cooper Kupp and giving him, any of that money. I think if there's one thing that we've learned from the Chiefs winning back-to-back Super Bowls and the Chiefs trading Tyreek Hill, it's that they feel very comfortable in Patrick Mahomes finding a way to elevate the wide receivers and the guys around him enough to win championships. And so I think that for as long as Patrick Mahomes is in Kansas City, they'll spend a nice, shiny first-round draft pick on a wide receiver, and that way they have the 5th-year option. But come, year 4 or 5, I think that they're going to explore drafting another wide receiver. They're not going to pay somebody. They're not going to pay somebody like Cooper Kupp because there's no point. If Patrick Mahomes can win a Super Bowl with MVS, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, and a rookie Rashee Rice, he can win a Super Bowl with damn near anybody. And so I don't think that the Chiefs will really ever be in the big market for a wide receiver. And if they are, it's going to be like a 1-year prove-it deal, like the Hollywood Brown signing. That move made so much sense because the Chiefs were just looking for a guy that could be a stopgap player, somebody that could kind of come in, maybe show a guy like Xavier Worthy the ropes, which I would not be surprised if that is ending. Like that's why they drafted Worthy to be the replacement of Hollywood Brown. But I really do think that it's just not going to happen. The Chiefs are not going to be in the big wide receiver trade game ever with Patrick Mahomes because they don't need to. Like, quite frankly, you draft a wide receiver in the 1st or 2nd every couple years, you're just going to keep giving Mahomes new young talent that's hopefully fast. And I just don't think there's any point in trading and giving that big money to a wide receiver when, that's not really a sustainable model for success. I think the Chiefs would be much better off, doing the model that I said, and that is drafting players almost every year to give young talent around Patrick Mahomes, pay the important guys. The Chiefs can pay the Chris Joneses and the Travis Kelce's. You can pay special talent. If the Chiefs would have paid Tyreek Hill, I wouldn't have faulted them, but they didn't. And they ended up trading him to Miami, and we saw how beneficial that trade was to the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, they really lucked out because with that trade, they got Trent McDuffie, who's turned into one of the best corners in football, and he is going to consistently be one of the best cornerbacks in football, and he will be up until his contract comes up. And there's a good chance that maybe they don't pay him when it comes out. But I think the Chiefs are okay with paying few players top money and, just drafting homegrown talent that can come in, be a staple for Patrick Mahomes, and just, provide some youth and some talent to this squad. And so I think that, going forward, they shouldn't be in the market of drafting a wide receiver, or I guess trading for a wide receiver like Cooper Kupp, or, Mike Evans was a big name over the offseason that I remember seeing that Chiefs fans wanted, but Mike Evans got like $50 million for 2 years. And so that just never made sense for the Chiefs to pull that off. And so I think that I think it is a really good idea to follow the model of we're going to draft talent, we're going to develop that talent, and we'll just keep doing that. And it has worked for the past couple seasons. And listen, guys, if a team has won back-to-back Super Bowls and have had all this success, maybe don't change what's working. If it's working, there is no point in deviating from that plan. And so I think that that is the sustainable model for success going forward. But I think that we are getting close to the end of our time here. Again, I am out at the Hollywood Casino for the kickoff of the ESPN bet. You should absolutely come out here if you get the chance to, ahead of the football game between Lindenwood and Kansas. I will say the casino, starting at 5 o'clock, is offering free shuttling from the casino to the game. Don't deal with stadium parking. It is one of the worst things you could possibly do. Coming from experience, I work for the Chiefs. I have to park there every week. Do not do it. Use the Hollywood Casino. Use their transportation system. I'm going to be on the bus. I'm going to be over there taking photos for the school newspaper over at Children's Mercy Park. I'm not driving, guys. I'm taking the shuttle. So if you guys are going out to the game, stop by the Hollywood Casino. Come on in. Have a chance to win some big prizes. And also, just get some free shuttling, man. Because honestly, parking around Children's Mercy Park, it's not fun. So definitely come out to the Hollywood Casino for your opportunity to get free transportation over to the big game. So before I get out of here, I wanted to wrap up with the Kansas City Royals. Again, the Royals are kicking off a big, and I mean a big series with the Houston Astros. And this is a series that, I don't want to hinge the Royals season on it, but if they could find a way to go into Houston and just take the series, they're playing a 4-game stretch in Houston. If they can win 3 out of 4 games, this Royals team is going to, I don't want to say lock up a playoff spot because there's a lot of baseball left to be played, but this Royals team would be almost solidified at making the playoffs, if they were able to win this series in Houston. So the Royals are going to have to do their best. The bullpen is going to have to be consistent. They're definitely going to have to, be able to get outs late in games. And I think that we're going to see, if this offense can continue to be carried by Bobby Witt Jr. and Vinny Pasquantino and Salvador Perez. They've done it up until this point, and going into Houston, this series is giant. They're going to have to find a way to get it done in Houston. So that is all the time that I have for you guys. If you guys like this stream, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be doing more streams during the season. Again, I'll do some more post-game streams and maybe some, live Q&As throughout the week. I will say that if you haven't already, like this video, share it with other people so more Chiefs fans can find it. And if you haven't already, come check out the Hollywood Casino by the Kansas Speedway. They've got a bunch of great deals going on. And if you want to win some money, this is definitely the place to do it. So for Michael Darcy, thank you for watching this live stream, and go Chiefs.